Didn't realize I was getting roasted during the break. Rogers over here getting Barrett Sallee ready to go, and I'm getting to spend 2 hours every day with Patrick. What could be better? In the most obvious sarcastic voice of all time. Like hanging out with me is a root canal of, like a colonoscopy root canal of some kind. Oh, man. It's Patrick Netherton Show, 11:30 The Tiger. He's Rogers Hampton. I'm Patrick Netherton. Pleased to join you on a wonderful day, and very pleased to welcome in. Man, we hadn't had him on yet this football season. I can't believe it. But he's so freaking busy. Every time you turn around, he's got a new video up from somewhere. He's interviewing coaches. Just the guy is ridiculous. The content that he outputs is insane. He is Barrett Sallee from CBS Sports. Barrett, what's up, my brother? How are you?
I'm good, yeah. A little good-natured ribbing behind your back with me and Rogers.
Yeah, well,
before I came on. Well, honestly, you deserve it, though, dude.
Well, and the problem is it was right in front of me. It's not like it was my Rogers is literally 4 feet from me. We don't have one of these expensive studios where he's behind glass in another room. No, he's literally 4 feet from me right now and saying it right to my face.
Well, then that's good. Would you rather him say it to your face or behind your back? See, he's doing a service to you.
I mean, he does it either way, so it's not like I have to worry about it. I know it's coming either direction. Yeah, back on the Brando show days, he would just go off mic and yell at me when he was in another room, and I couldn't hear him. So now at least I get to hear it when he's sarcastically applauding me during the course of the show. Man, it's been a bit since you and I have caught up, but let's kind of go through what we know at this point. We're closing in on the last couple of weeks of the regular season. Anything that has gone down, especially in the SEC, obviously that's your baby, that's what you cover. Anything that has surprised you, caught you off guard, anything that has jumped out to you and that, man, I didn't believe this would happen going into the season?
Yeah, I mean, LSU, I've been as critical and as cynical about LSU as anybody. And, I've been right for like years, right? It did not happen the seventh year because I was in I'll believe it when I see it with LSU. I think I did pick them to go 10-2 or 9-3 preseason. But that was more virtue of the SEC West, I thought, being a little bit down than it was a reflection of what LSU could become. But my goodness, what they became was like everything that every offseason promised for the last 6 years guaranteed, and then some. So I did not think that LSU would be like this. This is a 180-degree turn from what they used to be. Outside of that, nothing terribly shocking. I guess the early season losses by Tennessee are up there, but they still can go 7-5. I think I picked them to go 8-4. So, not the path I expected for the Vols, but the end result might be the same. I am disappointed a little bit in Texas A&M. A lot of that, though, had to do with the fact that, they lost their running back in week 2 in Ja'Shawn Corbin, and it took a little while for Isaiah Spiller to get things going. So, I mean, a little disappointed in Texas A&M and Kellen Mond, but all in all, their season result, their record at the end of the season, not going to be much different than what I thought it'd be.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that is, to me, I don't want to say surprising because I think I've seen this as it's gone along, but, man, you look at Ed Orgeron from his Ole Miss head coaching days to taking over as the interim at SC to defensive line coach at LSU and then interim at LSU, then head coach at LSU. There may not be a coach in the country who has done more of a 180 on his coaching image and his ability to learn from his mistakes than Ed Orgeron has.
Yeah, I mean, I said it. I was down there for the Auburn LSU game, and I said it on HQ afterwards that he's basically Saban from 2014 because Saban did the same thing, and he swallowed his pride, hired Lane Kiffin, and look what happened. Well, Ed Orgeron, catch him at an honest moment, Ed Orgeron hates this brand of football that he's coaching. I mean, I guarantee you that he hates it, but he knows that he has to do it. And so he's going to do it at a level that's better than pretty much anybody. So he's Nick Saban, not to say he has the titles or the clout or is as good of a coach, but from a mindset standpoint, he's Nick Saban from 5 years ago. And as a result, I think he's in a perfect position to keep LSU at this level, comparable to Alabama, comparable to Georgia, Ohio State, everybody else, for a long, long time. He has completely turned around his image, and I think that, the fact that he did that, but he still has had the same sort of attitude and is fun-loving and is outgoing and all that stuff is quite refreshing because, a lot of coaches love hearing about themselves. I don't necessarily think Ed Orgeron's like that, but he should be proud of himself because he's completely turned around his image and the fortune of a program that should have been at this level for a long time.
And maybe for the first time, with the exception of a running back, he's got offensive recruits calling him, wanting to come and play for LSU.
Yeah, I mean, how often does that happen that you have quarterbacks willing to go play for the Tigers that are not being recruited to be dual threat quarterbacks yet being turned into pocket passers, which is what Les Miles
was less
really good back. Yeah, dating back to Ryan Perrilloux, that's how he rolled. But yeah, I mean, it's been remarkable, man. It's been fun to watch, and like LSU folks seem to think that I hate LSU. I mean, I just was doing my job and being honest about what I thought of LSU for the last 6-7 years. And to be wrong is actually kind of nice because I think that college football is better when LSU is actually a threat to Alabama.
Well, I mean, we know you hate LSU. You also, look, we know you hate every team in the SEC.
I hate everybody.
With the exception of Georgia, because we know you're a closet Georgia Bulldog fan.
That grew up hating Georgia more than anybody else in the world.
Right, exactly. Okay, so you and Brady Quinn, by the way, when I went to the video to try to listen to you and Brady Quinn talk about the LSU defense, it took me to another video of someone else doing something else. So just to let you know that. So I was trying to find it. I didn't get to see it. But give me your synopsis of why LSU fans should be concerned about what their defense has done.
Well, just because, it can jump up and bite them. Not to say that it will. I mean, I'm a firm believer that defense doesn't win championships. Just enough defense wins championships. And that's a moving target based on a lot of different variables, but most specifically what kind of offense you have. And so it's working for LSU right now, and that's fine. But, what happens if, in a playoff, if that defense does come back to bite them? It happened to Alabama last year in the national championship game. Nobody really expected that, but it happened. Is Joe Burrow and that group capable of keeping up? I think they're capable of keeping up enough, but if they're going up against Justin Fields or if they're going up against Trevor Lawrence or somebody like that, okay, it's one thing to be capable of doing something. It's another thing to actually go out and do it. And so, I think in terms of being a complete team, LSU might have the best resume. It's also very incomplete. I mean, I think Clemson and Ohio State are more well-rounded. And so, if you catch them, at the right time, can you keep up? I don't know. You're comparing $50 stakes at this point. You're not going to be wrong, but I just think to me, it's too much of a trend now to just assume that everything will be all right. And everything might be all right, but just to assume that it will, I think, is a little irresponsible.
You mentioned that Ohio State and Clemson seem more well-rounded, and I'm curious, how do you go about – because this is the problem for me. You see Ohio State's beating the living daylights out of everybody every week, but they haven't played anybody. They got really one good game, and that was Wisconsin. And they beat Wisconsin handily. There's no doubt about it. And you look at Clemson, and Clemson has probably should have lost to North Carolina, but now they're beating the doors off of everyone. How do you go about determining, as you mentioned, differentiating between the $50 stakes when – Ohio State really hadn't played anyone. Clemson's never going to play anyone in the ACC, and LSU has seemingly the best resume at this point. How do you differentiate between these teams when they're not playing like competition?
Because, you can take some of the lesser competition that LSU has played and seen the same problem exist. Vanderbilt went nuts on that LSU defense. John Rice Plumlee for Ole Miss is still running around. That LSU defense. And so, it's, to me anyway, you have to look at the resume, and LSU, sure, it has the best resume, 100% has the best resume. But I think the criticism of LSU is there even in games where they didn't get signature wins. I mean, the defense was bad against Florida, but that's a signature win because they got the job done, and that's a resume builder. But the same problem existed against bad teams, and so that's a problem. And so that's how I think you can compare them, to say, look, yeah, resume's there, but the problem, the flaw that everybody sees exists not only in tough games, but against games that I think anyway, Clemson and Ohio State would look better than LSU in.
So you think Clemson and Ohio State would be better against the likes of Florida and Vanderbilt, and they would have held Ole Miss's rushing attack down more than LSU?
Not necessarily Florida. I mean, I think those games, those big time games, Ohio State. Yes, I think Ohio State and Clemson would have won those games too. Do I think that Ohio State and Clemson would have handled a team like Vanderbilt or a team like Ole Miss better? Yeah, absolutely. I don't even think it'd be close.
My interesting aspect of this, and this isn't on you, this is really on a lot of the LSU fandom as a whole. There's a lot of the sky is falling after John Rice Plumlee ran for 200 and there were 400 yards rushing. But then I go back and I look, and number one, Rich Rod is their offensive coordinator. And remember the last time Rich Rod had a dynamic quarterback, it was Khalil Tate, and he was in the Heisman conversation.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So
incidentally, John Rice Plumlee and Khalil Tate looking awful lightly.
They really do. John Rice Plumlee is fast. That dude is incredibly quick. The two things that I keep taking into consideration is, number one, Rich Rod, they ran for 270 against Bama. They ran for over 200 against A&M. They ran for 170 against Auburn. They can do that. Rich Rod is a good enough coach with a good enough scheme and a quarterback that can run that offense to put up good rushing totals on other teams. The other thing that strikes me is a lot of this yardage that people are freaking out about, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss especially, has come when LSU was all the way out in front, 20, 30 points ahead, and then it's like everyone kind of relaxed and the defense relaxed a little bit. Now, I know Ohio State's out there beating teams 72-3, but isn't there some cause for, maybe let's slow down the concern because you're already up by 30 and you've got a couple of, especially with Ole Miss, an offense that's gimmicky enough that you won't see again?
Sure. I mean, but my counterpoint to that is that that's not happening with those other teams, which should matter, right? Like, I think that should, the fact that Clemson and Ohio State are not having that happen to them in similar situations is something that should be a bullet point on their side of this argument. And I would say that, yeah, a lot of those yards and a lot of those points are in garbage time, but I mean, the second half of the Ole Miss LSU game, things did get sketchy. Like, it wasn't like that game was out of reach. Ole Miss was out of it in the third quarter, late in the third quarter. Like, they had a chance. And so, and still LSU had a hard time slowing them down. So, and it wasn't like they were being creative. So, I don't know. And then Vanderbilt kind of the same way. I mean, LSU did get up big early, but LSU hung around in that game. It wasn't like, LSU, it wasn't like Vanderbilt, in my mind anyway, was completely out of it. And I never thought they really had a chance, but I mean, they weren't out of it. So I don't know. Again, we're talking about three really good teams. So the level in which you analyze them is a little different. Ohio State and Clemson don't have that problem, and LSU's had that problem all year long. Yes, the games have been out of reach, but again, LSU and Ohio State and Clemson certainly don't have that problem now. You can make an argument that Clemson did back in the first month of the season, but they fixed it and LSU didn't.
Yeah, I'd be very curious I would be curious to see what Ole Miss would actually do against Ohio State and Clemson, just because of the way that offense runs with John Rice Plumlee. Talking to Barrett Sallee from CBS Sports, who's kind enough to join us. Is the Heisman a fait accompli at this point, Barrett, or does someone have a chance to actually jump in there and unseat Burrow?
I think it is, but if I were to make an argument that it's not, I would say that the only person is Justin Fields. And if Justin Fields just goes nuts on Penn State, goes nuts on Michigan, and does the same against whoever in the Big Ten championship game, he's going to put together a pretty strong case. I don't think it'd be enough to beat Burrow out for it, but I don't know. I mean, if let's just say Burrow struggles and LSU either wins or loses the SEC championship game, but either way Burrow struggles, could I see some Heisman voters becoming prisoners of the moment and docking him and giving their votes to, or the first place votes to Justin Fields? Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I don't think enough of them would, but I think Justin Fields is the only real competitor at this point.
It feels that way. What do you think we'll learn about Ohio State in the next couple of weeks now that they actually are going to play some – I mean, Wisconsin was a good team, but they're very limited. They're a one-dimensional squad. What do you think we'll learn about Ohio State in the next couple of weeks when they play some more complete teams?
I think you're going to see that they're the exact same team we've seen for the first 2.5 months of the season. That team is awesome. I think they're first in offensive and defensive efficiency right now. I mean, it's insane how good they are. And, yes, Wisconsin is one-dimensional, and I don't know how much different Penn State's going to be in that regard. I don't really know how much different Michigan's going to be in that regard, and I don't really know how much different the Big Ten West representative is going to be in the Big Ten championship game. So, I think you're going to see more of the same. I don't think you'll learn anything about Ohio State that we don't already know. And then at the end of the season, people will have their opinions whether that's a product of the schedule or confirmation that they're, a really good football team. I think that they're the best team in the country right now. And I think they'll prove that for the next few weeks and get to the playoff undefeated, and they might have the number one seed at that point.
Let's play this out. Assume that LSU handles their business against Arkansas and A&M. They face Georgia in the championship game. I hear a lot of people talking about, well, what if Georgia beats LSU? Do you believe that that's realistic, that Georgia – with their sort of archaic offensive style and relying on the defense. I mean, they're kind of built like 2009, 2011 LSU Alabama. Do you think that style can actually win against a team that's rolling the way LSU is?
Well, I don't necessarily think that's an accurate description of exactly what Georgia is offensively. Defensively, they have the best shot by far of slowing down LSU's offense. I know Auburn's defense is great. I think their secondary is susceptible. I don't think Georgia's is. So I think defensively that'll give them a shot. I think Georgia's offense was third in the SEC in yards per play coming into last week's game. I don't know what they are now, but they are rather explosive. They just do it in a different way, and they don't do it as much. And it's a very vanilla, whatever it is, 6.86 yards per play or whatever it is. To me, I feel, and there's nothing to suggest this is right. There's also nothing to suggest that it's wrong. To me, I feel like they've been taking the path of least resistance all season long. They did it too much against South Carolina, and it came back to bite them because when they actually go tempo, they're awesome. Against Auburn, they were. Against South Carolina, when they tied it up in the fourth quarter, they were. Against Notre Dame, it's won them the game. They pick and choose when to do that a little bit too judiciously, and I think that's why it appears that they're ultra vanilla. I think there's more in that tank, and I think that they get put in spots where they don't have to show it and just refuse to do it for the sake of doing it. Like, Auburn came back in that game because Georgia's offense struggled. Well, why did it struggle? Well, they were one-dimensional by choice. Yeah. There was no reason to go tempo. There was no reason to sling the ball around. And so Auburn's defensive line stuffed up against the run, and that's what happened. Yeah. There was no reason to do what I think they can do in that situation. So I think they've been falling into that trap a little bit. I'm still fully anticipate them to have the kind of offense that can be complementary enough with that defense to give LSU its toughest test of the years.
I just feel like Kirby Smart is 5 years ago Nick Saban. He feels like he hasn't advanced like Saban has, to me anyway. And again, that's just watching them. It just appears that, okay, we're just going to line up, we're just going to run the ball and bebopping on our way down the field. And that's good enough to beat almost everyone, as it used to be for LSU and as it used to be for Alabama, until you run into a team that's got athletes and skill level comparable to yours, and then you start to struggle. And so that just, Kirby Smart feels like unevolved Nick Saban at this point.
I think that's fair, and there's a lot of stuff to suggest that is right. I think you're definitely on. That's definitely fair. I think the thing though is, if we're viewing Georgia and Kirby Smart as a pendulum, right? He's still very much in the middle. I think that he's closer to being more exotic than he's shown. But I do think that he very much wants to play his way, whereas guys like Saban and Coach Orgeron, they're firmly okay and have shown that they're okay, playing in a way that probably personally is insulting to them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Saban was the guy who was saying, do we really want offense to look like this? Do we really want tempo? Is this what we want college football to be? I mean, that was, 7 years ago? So, it's not like it's not like this is something that is, Saban, we know he doesn't like it, but he lives with it.
But here's the thing, too. Kirby was there for that. Like, he knows what happened. And that's why, the idea that he's just cut and dry old Saban, it looks like that now. I can't, knowing Kirby a little bit, I can't imagine him going in that direction, knowing what he has witnessed personally up close and personal.
Well, maybe his Pokemon will evolve at some point, and he'll turn into his final form. Barrett, you're the best, man. Thank you very much for your time, brother. And where are you this weekend? Are you off somewhere?
I get to have a home game.
Nice.
How cool is that?
Like actually at your home, or is someone playing in Atlanta?
At my home. Actually, at my home.
Oh, there you go.
Very
good. Very
good.
good. That is, hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. Hanging around the homestead, doing all the honeydews. That's
right.
That's the life of Barrett Sallee this weekend. Brother, thank you so much, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
All right, Barrett Sallee, CBS Sports. Good stuff, man.